Welcome back to Stompbox Breakdown. What are we going to look at this time? Well, it occurred to me the other day that I have a lot of phaser pedals and that I've yet to actually do a phaser episode. And as I started figuring out where to start, it became apparent that I didn't really even know what a phaser does. I guess I just always kind of assumed that it was called a phaser because, set phasers to stun, and it kind of makes a sound like a science fiction phaser gun, like wee 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 wee. But after doing some digging, it dawned on me that the science behind these things is really so interesting, yet so simple and clever all by itself that it deserves its own video. Also, for selfish reasons, so that when I do get around to making a breakdown video of this incredible DoD Phasor 201, I want to just link back to this video instead of spending another 10 minutes explaining what an all-pass filter does. So, if you came here for a pedal demo or to hear some Van Halen riffs played 8 times through 8 different pedals, there's a bunch of other videos for that. And if you're one of those dudes who's just gonna be like,
too much talking,
there's gonna be a lot of talking here. But for the curious viewer who really wants to learn something, this is your video, so let's get started. Here's your standard phaser sound. And so you can hear it a little more pronounced, here it is after a distortion pedal. Now, there's something going on in there, and that something is what we're going to get to the bottom of. First off, we need to agree that any sound, no matter how simple or complex, can be represented by a sound wave, since a sound is just an oscillation of something, usually air, which can be heard. And that makes sense because the only thing our eardrums can sense is changes in pressure. So for something to be perceived as a sound to us, the air needs to oscillate between 20 times and 20,000 times a second. That's 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, the typical human hearing range. And our eardrums aren't sensitive to light, to temperature, or to electromagnetic disturbances. So, unless you're underwater, if you've ever heard something with your ear, it's because it caused the air around your ear to vibrate somewhere between 20 and 20,000 times a second. Pedals don't have ears, so they hear the signal through an electrical representation of sound. Rather than air pressure waves oscillating back and forth, they're getting waves of electrons originated from the vibration of metal strings above an electromagnet called a guitar pickup, with those signals sent down the wire and into our pedal. So now we're finally at our pedal, and it only took us a minute and a half to get here. Now, the reason for that detour is twofold. One, it's important that we be able to think about sound as an electrical signal and vice versa, because the world of electric guitar is really the intersection of those two worlds, sound and electronics. And it's kind of necessary once we get into how a phaser phases. The second reason I point all that out is that our ears are pretty amazing things, and I see way too many younger people at shows without any hearing protection. And I deal with way too many people in their 40s and up who have just straight up trashed their eardrums, and they'll never get that hearing back. So please, please, please take care of your ears. Otherwise, when you get old, you won't be able to justify having a dozen phaser pedals because they'll just all sound the same. How sad would that be? All right, off my soapbox. So we've got our signal entering our phaser, and the heart of the phaser is the all-pass filter. And there's low-pass filters, there's high-pass filters, and there's all-pass filters. And all-pass filter almost sounds like an oxymoron, like a round triangle. How can it be a filter if everything passes through it? Well, an all-pass filter like this takes an oscillating electrical signal. That sounds familiar. And different frequencies will be pushed out of phase by different amounts. In our phaser, the target frequencies will be shifted by 90 degrees, and everything else after that will eventually wind up 180 degrees out of phase. At this point, the signal will sound mostly normal. It's not until we feed this into a second all-pass filter, or what we call a second stage, that the magic happens. And that's because after we apply a second all-pass filter, these frequencies up here are going to do a full 360 flip and flip back into phase, while the frequencies right in the middle here, which are 90 degrees out of phase, will suddenly be 180 degrees out of phase. They'll be inverted. And what happens when frequencies are 180 degrees out of phase with one another? They cancel each other out, or because we can say it in the most literal sense of the word here, they phase each other out. It's like a pile of dirt meeting an equal-sized hole in the ground. So if we chart all of our frequencies, we notice, hey, there's this funnel-shaped notch of frequencies missing right here. That's the effect of two all-pass filters back to back. A pedal like the Phase 90 repeats the process a second time, so 4 stages, 2 notches. It also uses a low-frequency oscillator to adjust the target frequency for those 4 stages back and forth slowly. That's the movement you hear. And if we generate some white noise, and then run that through a 2-stage phaser, hey, look at that. We can see those 2 notches moving back and forth. That's our phaser in action. Isn't that cool? And why 4 stages? Well, it's just a matter of taste, and it winds up being one of the biggest differentiators between phaser pedals. The Phase 45 is a 2-stage phaser, so it's just got 1 notch that's moving back and forth. The Phase 100 has 10 stages. This thing's a monster, but some of its stages don't oscillate their frequency. And the Univibe, well, the Univibe is its own thing. Other phasers like the Boss PH1R let you set the resonance or regeneration or feedback, which is how much of the phase signal gets sent back to the start of those all-pass filters to get phased even more. This diamond phase gives you a bunch of options, including the ability to select if you want either 2 or 6 stages. And this Electro-Harmonix Bad Stone lets you set it into manual mode, where you get to be the low-frequency oscillator. So you move those notches back and forth with this knob however you'd please. That was actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. So which phaser is my favorite? To be honest, there is one that very rarely ever leaves my pedal board, but the fact is, it's hard not to like a phaser. They all bring something special to the table, and that special something is what we will definitely be getting into on future episodes of Stompbox Breakdown. So make sure you're subscribed already!